Welcome to Talk Treatises. Today we are walking through the heavy oak doors of philosophy, but we aren't heading into the lecture hall with the hard benches and the smell of chalk dust.
No, not at all.
We are stepping into the parlor. A very practical, slightly cynical, but surprisingly comfortable parlor.
That's a great way to put it.
We are looking at a classic work that takes the complex, often gloomy machinery of metaphysics and tries to retool it for a very specific, very human purpose: happiness.
It is a fascinating pivot, and one of the rare moments in the history of philosophy where a thinker known for looking into the abyss decides to look at the living room furniture instead.
Right.
We are discussing the wisdom of life, or in the original German, Aphorismen zu der Lebensweisheit. It is a treatise by Arthur Schopenhauer.
Now, for anyone who knows Schopenhauer's reputation, the title alone, The Wisdom of Life, seems like a massive contradiction.
It really does.
This is the guy known as the philosopher of pessimism. He's the one who usually tells us that life is a mistake, a pendulum swinging between pain and boredom, and that the universe is just a blind, striving will with no purpose.
You are absolutely right. That is his brand, and frankly, it is the core of his main philosophical system. If you read his magnum opus, The World is Will and Representation, the ultimate advice is essentially deny the will, turn away from life, become an ascetic.
Yeah, not exactly a feel-good message.
It is not exactly material for a motivational poster, no.
So why is he writing a guide on how to be happy? Is he softening up in his old age?
Not softening, but perhaps compartmentalizing. This work is actually part of a larger collection called Parerga and Prolepomena, which, translates to appendices and omissions.
Okay.
And right in the introduction, Schopenhauer is very honest about what he's doing. He calls it a compromise.
A metaphysical compromise.
Exactly. He admits that his general system answers the question, is existence preferable to non-existence? With a hard no.
A very hard no.
A very hard no. But he says essentially, okay, let's step down from that high metaphysical peak for a moment.
Right.
He decides to adopt the common standpoint.
Right.
He asks a different question. Since we're already here, and since most of us are not going to become monks or ascetics, how can we order our lives to obtain the greatest possible amount of pleasure and success?
I love that. It's like he's saying, look, I still think the house is burning down and we're all trapped in it.
Right.
But since we have to wait for the fire to consume us, we might as well arrange the armchairs so we're comfortable.
That is a perfect analogy. He calls this study eudaimonology, the art of a happy existence.
Eudaimonology.
And he makes it clear that he is teaching us how to live a life that one might actually want to cling to for its own sake, rather than just out of a fear of death.
So we have the ultimate pessimist teaching us how to be happy. That paradox alone is enough to hook me.
It's a great hook.
But let's look at the context. We are in the early to mid 19th century. Schopenhauer is looking around at his predecessors. He mentions Aristotle and a mathematician named Cardan. But he feels like nobody has really nailed this specific angle, right?
Correct. He acknowledges that Aristotle touched on it in his rhetoric, and Cardan wrote a book called De Utilitate ex adversus capienda, which basically means how to derive benefit from misfortune. But Schopenhauer claims he isn't just compiling old advice. He wants to offer a unique view based on his understanding of human nature.
Okay.
And he starts with a premise that sets the tone perfectly. He quotes Voltaire.
Which quote?
"We shall leave this world as foolish and as wicked as we found it."
Which is such a cheerful way to start a self-help book.
Well, from Schopenhauer's perspective, it justifies the book. If the world is naturally foolish and wicked, then wisdom is rare.
It's an anomaly.
It is an anomaly, and therefore it is necessary. If we are to navigate the foolishness without being crushed by it, we need a guide. And Schopenhauer provides that guide with a single overarching thesis that drives the whole work.
And that thesis is the anchor for everything we're going to discuss today. It's the idea that human happiness depends far less on what we possess or how we are perceived by others.
And almost entirely on what we are.
What we are.
Precisely. Personality, the inner constitution, the health of the mind and body. These are the engines of well-being. Everything else, money, fame, rank, is just paint on the exterior of the house.
Right.
It doesn't fix the foundation.
Okay, let's unpack this. Schopenhauer is nothing if not structured. He breaks down the human lot into three distinct categories. He borrows the number 3 from Aristotle, but he changes the definition significantly. What are these 3 buckets that our lives fall into?
He categorizes everything that impacts our happiness into 1, what a man is.
Okay.
2, what a man has. And 3, what a man represents.
Is, has, and represents. It sounds simple, but I know Schopenhauer is going to complicate it.
The complexity comes in the weighting. The first category, what a man is, includes your personality in the widest sense. Your health, your strength, your beauty, your temperament, your moral character, and your intelligence.
So, intrinsic stuff.
These are things that nature has given you. They are intrinsic.
Versus what a man has, which is property and possessions, stuff you can buy or lose.
And what a man represents, which is position, rank, reputation, and honor. That is how you exist in the minds of other people.
Okay.
Schopenhauer argues that the differences in the first category, the nature-given advantages, are infinitely more important than the second and third, which are merely human arrangements.
He uses a theatrical analogy here that I thought was brilliant. He says that the difference between a king and a peasant in real life is just like the difference between actors playing those roles on stage.
Yes. Think about a play. One man is dressed as a prince, another as a minister, a third as a servant. But those are just external differences.
They're costumes.
They are costumes. Inside, the kernel of reality is the same for all of them. A poor player with anxieties, stomach aches, and personal troubles.
Right.
In life, rank and wealth assign the roles, but they don't determine the internal happiness of the actor.
This leads us to his core argument about the subjective versus the objective. This is a bit philosophical, but it's crucial to understanding his point. He says the world consists of a subject and an object, like oxygen and hydrogen make water.
It is the fundamental building block of his worldview. Think of it this way. The objective is the external world, the events, the scenery, the stuff that happens to you.
Okay.
The subjective is your consciousness, the container that holds all of that experience. Schopenhauer argues that the quality of the container is much more important than what you pour into it.
So if the container is dirty, even the clearest water looks muddy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He says a dull man sees a dull world. You could put a person with a melancholy temperament at the most magnificent festival in the world, and he will experience it as a dry, boring event.
He'll just complain about the parking.
He will focus on the line for the bathroom or the bad music. Yes.
But a genius, or a person with a rich inner life, sees a world full of meaning and interest everywhere.
He uses the example of Cervantes writing Don Quixote.
A perfect example. Cervantes wrote one of the greatest, most imaginative works in human history while sitting in a miserable prison.
Right. The objective reality, the prison walls, the chains, the bad food, was bleak. But the subjective reality, his mind, was so rich that it didn't matter.
Wow.
He was living in the vibrant world of his imagination. The prison was just the setting. His mind was the play.
He also compares the mind to a camera obscura, which is an old optical device. If the camera is bad, the most beautiful landscape in the world will look flat and blurry.
Which brings us back to the thesis. We spend so much time trying to change the landscape to get more money, better titles, bigger houses, when we should be focusing on the camera.
On the lens itself.
Because what a man is accompanies him everywhere. You cannot escape your own personality. You are stuck with yourself.
That is both a comforting and a terrifying thought. You are stuck with yourself. You can fly to Paris, but you have to bring your own head with you.
And if that head is a bad neighborhood, Paris won't help.
Not one bit. So if we accept that what a man is the most important factor, what does Schopenhauer say constitutes a good personality? What's the foundation? He doesn't start with morals or intellect, surprisingly.
No, not at all.
He starts with physiology.
He asserts that the absolute foundation of happiness is health.
A healthy beggar is happier than an ailing king.
That is the famous quote. He goes so far as to say that 90% of happiness depends on health alone.
90%.
Without it, no other pleasure is possible. Even the greatest intellect or the vastest fortune is useless if you are physically wretched.
And he has a very specific view on why this is. He quotes Aristotle saying, life is movement.
He takes a very biological, almost mechanical view. He talks about the rapid motion of the heart, the lungs, the brain. He says our organism requires external movement to match this internal tumult. The faster the motion, the greater the motion.
He points out that the heart beats 100,000 times a day. The intestines are always writhing. It's a factory in there.
Exactly. And if you are sedentary, if you sit at a desk all day and never move, there is a glaring disproportion between your inner activity and your outer stillness.
A mismatch.
A huge mismatch. And this leads to physical unease, which manifests as emotional irritability or depression.
So step one to happiness, according to Schopenhauer, go for a walk, a fast one.
Essentially, yes. He says we must give the organism the external movement it craves to balance the internal storm.
But beyond health, he talks about a specific quality that he calls the immediate currency of happiness.
Yes, cheerfulness.
Cheerfulness.
I love this concept. He says that wealth and fame are like checks on a bank. They're promises of future happiness.
They're IOUs from the universe?
Right. You look at your bank account and think, I could buy something nice later. That gives you a warm feeling, but it's abstract.
But cheerfulness.
Cheerfulness is the cash. It pays instantly. If you are cheerful, you are happy right now. It doesn't matter if you are young, old, rich, or poor. If you have that sunny disposition, you have the prize.
He says we should fling the doors open whenever cheerfulness arrives. But usually we hesitate.
We do.
We think, I shouldn't be happy right now. I have serious work to do, or I need to worry about this problem.
Which is insanity to him. You are turning away the actual gold to chase the promise of gold. It makes no sense.
But Schopenhauer being Schopenhauer, he identifies the enemies of this happiness. He sees life as a battlefield between two major scourges. What are the two poles of human misery?
Pain and boredom.
Pain and boredom. It sounds simple, but his analysis of how these two forces interact with society is profound.
It is sociological. He argues that pain is the scourge of the lower classes, the needy, who are struggling for survival.
The daily grind.
If you are poor, you are fighting cold, hunger, and illness. You are in the domain of pain.
Right, you don't have time to be bored because you are trying to stay alive.
But boredom. Boredom is the scourge of the wealthy.
Yeah.
The moment you secure your basic needs, the moment you remove the pain of want, you are immediately attacked by boredom.
It's the double antagonism. Life swings like a pendulum. You struggle to get food, escaping pain. You get the food, you eat it, and then...
And then what?
You are bored, so you have to invent a new struggle.
And he thinks your internal balance, your inner makeup, determines which one you're more susceptible to.
This brings us to his concept of inner wealth.
Yes. He argues that intellectual dullness causes vacuity of soul. That is the root of boredom.
Vacuity of soul. That's harsh.
It is. If you have nothing going on inside your head, you are constantly looking for external excitement to move you. You need the ball games, the parties, the gossip, the drama.
This brings us to his definition of the Philistines. Now, we use this word today to mean someone who doesn't like art, but Schopenhauer has a very specific surgical definition for it.
He defines the Philistines as a man without mental needs.
Ouch. That is scathing.
It implies a lack of humanity almost. The Philistine has only physical needs. He seeks realities, not ideas.
What does he mean by that?
He needs oysters, champagne, horses, cards. He needs things he can touch and consume.
But the problem with physical pleasures is that they are finite.
Exactly. You can only eat so many oysters before you get sick. You can only drink so much champagne before you pass out. The physical pleasures have a limit.
And they have diminishing returns.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But because the Philistines has no mental needs, he has no intellectual pleasures to fall back on.
So when the oysters run out, he stares into the abyss.
And the abyss stares back as boredom. He eventually becomes a burden to himself. This is why Schopenhauer says the Philistine is constantly seeking society.
To distract himself.
He needs people around him to distract him from his own emptiness.
Whereas the person with inner wealth, the intellectual, is immune to boredom. For them, leisure is the flower of existence.
That is a beautiful phrase. Leisure is the flower of existence. For the vast majority of mankind, leisure is just time to kill. It's a vacuum that needs to be filled with noise.
Yeah.
But for the wise man, leisure is the time to be oneself.
This creates a bit of a social problem for the intellectual, though. Schopenhauer doesn't seem to think highly of socializing.
No. He famously says, 100 fools together will not make one wise man.
Yeah.
He argues that high intelligence inevitably leads to unsociability.
Why is that? Is it just snobbery?
It is partly snobbery, I think we have to admit that, but it is also arithmetic. He argues that the more you have in yourself, the less you need from others.
You're self-sufficient.
If you are a self-sustaining universe of ideas, other people are often just a distraction or, frankly, a lowering of the standard.
He uses the analogy of the warm room.
Yes. The man who has inner warmth, intellectual wealth, prefers to stay in his own room. He doesn't need to go out into the society to rub bodies with others to get warm.
So we socialize out of a kind of inner coldness.
We congregate because we are cold. We're trying to pool our emptiness to create a sort of social heat. That's his view.
Schopenhauer also makes an observation here that reflects the racial prejudices of his 19th century context, noting that those lower on the intellectual scale seek constant companionship.
Yes, he links the desire for constant socialization with a lack of intellectual independence. And, while his specific examples are very dated and biased, the philosophical point he's making is clear.
Which is?
Solitude is the prerogative of the genius.
Yeah.
The more you are like everyone else, the more you will enjoy society. The more unique you are, the more you will find society alienating.
So the lesson for what a man is, build a mind that you actually want to live in.
Because you're going to be spending a lot of time there.
You're trapped in there.
Precisely.
Let's move to the second category. What a man has. Property. Now, Schopenhauer doesn't say money is useless. He's practical. He actually thinks money is very important.
He is a realist. He references Epicurus' division of needs. First, the natural and necessary food and clothing.
The basics.
If you don't have these, you have pain. Then, natural but not necessary sensual gratification, good food, sex. And finally, neither natural nor necessary luxury, splendor, mansions.
And those are the dangerous ones.
These are the hardest to satisfy because the desire for them has no natural limit.
He has this great line, wealth is like seawater. The more you drink, the thirstier you become.
That explains the horizon of wealth. Happiness regarding money is relative. A farmer isn't unhappy because he doesn't own a palace, because a palace isn't on his horizon.
It's not in his frame of reference.
It's not in his field of vision. But a rich man is miserable if his plan to buy a second palace fails.
It's all about expectation.
And adaptation. When we lose wealth, we suffer deeply, but only until we lower our claims.
Our expectations adjust.
Once we adjust our horizon down, the pain stops.
Yeah.
We return to a set point. But the craving for more is endless, because as soon as we get more, the horizon expands. We never reach the horizon.
He does make a very strong point about the value of independence, though. He thinks being born with enough money to live without working is a rare, almost sacred privilege.
He calls it being born free. It immunizes you against the pain side of the equation. It gives you the time to cultivate what a man is.
You own your time.
It allows you to possess your own time, which he thinks is the greatest treasure.
But he distinguishes between how different people handle this. He compares those who earn their money versus those who inherit it.
Yes, and this is an interesting psychological observation. He says those who are born rich treat wealth as capital.
That's the principle.
It is the foundation of their existence, something to be preserved at all costs.
Yeah.
They live off the interest. They are terrified of touching the principle.
But the people who earn it, the self-made men.
He argues that people who earn wealth through talent or art often treat their money as income.
Oh.
They think, I made this, I can make it again, so they spend it. They buy the fancy carriage, the big house, the wine, and when their talent fades or the market changes, they are ruined.
He makes an exception for merchants, though.
Yes, because for a merchant, money is a tool of the trade. They understand how to handle it, how to make it grow. But the artist, the genius, they are often terrible with money.
Why?
They view it as a means to pleasure, not as a fortress against pain.
And we have to mention his note on women and money here. It's very 19th century, but it's part of his analysis of what a man has.
It is. We should be clear. This is his view, reflecting his time. He advises that women should never be left control of capital, only the interest.
He thinks they'll spend it all.
He claims that women have a gusto for spending. In his view, which is obviously shaped by the gender roles of his time, he believes that because women weren't traditionally the earners, they don't have that ingrained preservation instinct.
Right.
He sees them as naturally extravagant.
Right. He treats wealth as this fortress that you have to defend because once it's gone, you're thrown back into the struggle pain cycle. And he thinks anyone who hasn't felt the cold wind of poverty doesn't know how to lock the gate properly.
That's a great way to put it. For Schopenhauer, money isn't for showing off. It's for freedom. It's the wall that keeps the world away.
Okay, let's go to the third category. What a man represents. Position, rank, fame. Schopenhauer seems to have the most contempt for this one.
He calls it the great folly.
Why?
Because it places your happiness in the heads of other people.
Outside of yourself.
And he asks, why would you want your happiness to reside there? Of all the insecure, unstable places to store your well-being.
He says other people's consciousness is not the place where our happiness exists.
He uses the analogy of the cat. You stroke a cat, it purrs. You praise a man, he beams. It's a reflex.
A biological reflex.
But it's absurd. He tells stories of criminals being executed, like Thomas Wicks, who were more worried about bowing to the crowd or wearing the right outfit than about the fact that they were about to be hanged.
That's vanity overriding the survival instinct.
That is vanity. Schopenhauer makes a sharp distinction between pride and vanity.
Okay, what's the difference?
Pride is an internal conviction. You know you are worth something. It is silent. You don't need to tell anyone.
And vanity.
Vanity is the desire to make others believe you are worth something. It is talkative. It is begging for validation. Schopenhauer respects pride. He thinks you should be proud if you have reason to be, but he despises vanity.
And he saves his harshest roast for national pride.
Oh, it is brutal. He says national pride is the cheapest form of pride.
The cheapest form.
Because if you're proud of your nation, it implies you have no individual qualities of your own to be proud of. You are grasping at a shared trait because you have nothing personal to offer.
If you are proud of your nation, you lack individual qualities. That is a hot take even today.
He says the man of real merit sees his nation's faults most clearly because he is constantly looking at them with an intelligent eye.
Right.
But the fool clings to the nation because it is the only thing that gives him value.
So we have rank, which he dismisses as a conventional sham, basically a fake currency. And then we get to honor. Now, Schopenhauer breaks honor down into a few types: civic honor, official honor.
Right, the basic ones. Civic honor is just respecting the rights of others, essential for society. It's the basic, I won't steal your cow agreement.
Okay.
Official honor is being fit for your job. But then he gets to the stuff that really makes his blood boil. Knightly honor. The point d'honneur.
This is the code of the duel, the idea that if you insult me, I have to fight you. This was huge in 19th century Europe.
Huge and deadly. Schopenhauer hates this with a passion. He analyzes it and realizes it's not about respect at all.
What's it about then?
It's about fear.
How so?
Civic honor is about being trusted. Knightly honor is about being feared. He lists the principles of this code, and when you hear them listed, they sound insane.
Let's hear them.
Okay, principle 1. Honor depends on what others say, not what they think. You can think I'm a liar, but if you call me a liar, I have to challenge you.
So it's about the performance, not the reality.
Exactly. Principle 2. Honor depends on what you suffer, like an insult, not what you do. If I commit a crime, my honor is fine. But if you slap me for it, my honor is gone.
It's completely backwards. The victim loses the honor.
And the only cure for an insult is blood, or the advantage. This is the idea that rudeness is strength.
The rudest is always right.
Exactly. If we are having a debate and you are winning with logic and facts, I can restore my honor by just being incredibly rude to you.
Or hitting you.
Or hitting you. Because in the code of knightly honor, brutality trumps intellect.
The supreme court of knightly honor is physical force.
Yes. He contrasts this with the Greeks and Romans. If a Roman got a box on the ear, it was a physical injury. He might sue you, but it wasn't a metaphysical catastrophe.
A stain on your soul.
Right. In Schopenhauer's time, a slap in the face was a stain on your soul that had to be washed out with a sword. It's madness to him.
He calls the duel a temple of honor dedicated to folly.
And he suggests a solution. He says we shouldn't execute duelists because that makes them tragic heroes. We should just give anyone who sends a challenge 12 strokes of the stick.
Corporal punishment. Spanking.
Public humiliation. Because knightly honor thinks it is above the physical body. It thinks it is pure spirit. So you punish it with the most degrading physical pain possible. You treat them like naughty children.
He really wants to pop that bubble of arrogance.
Well, he does. He sees it as a relic of the Middle Ages, a right of might that has no place in a civilized world.
Finally, under this category, we have fame.
Fame, the undying brother of the mortal honor.
He distinguishes between actions and works. This is a profound distinction for anyone trying to create something.
It is. Actions are things you do in the moment. A general wins a battle. A politician gives a speech. It is performative.
It's temporary.
But it depends on witnesses. It depends on the context. Once the memory fades, the action is gone. Works, literature, philosophy, art, composition are permanent. They are objects that exist outside of time. But, he says, they require a competent audience.
And that's the problem.
That is the problem.
When a head and a book come into collision and one sounds hollow, is it always the book?
That's the Lichtenberg quote he uses. Schopenhauer is very cynical about the public. He says fame is often just an echo chamber.
An echo chamber.
A few people clap because they understand the work. Then a few more clap because they see the first group clapping. Then the multitude claps because they don't want to look like they don't get it.
They're like a deaf audience clapping because they see hands moving.
Exactly. So for the person creating the work, where is the happiness? It cannot be in the fame itself.
It has to be in the work.
It has to be in the merit that deserves the fame. The happiness is in the creating, in the possession of the great thoughts. If you rely on the applause, you are relying on the echo, not the voice.
The temple of fame is inhabited only by the great dead.
Yes. If you are truly great, you probably won't be appreciated in your lifetime because you are an alien to your contemporaries. You belong to posterity.
So to summarize his main argument before we get to our experiments, don't look for happiness in your stuff, property. That's just seawater.
Right.
Don't look for it in likes and retweets, position. That's just a shadow. Look for it in your own health, your own mind, and your own capacity to enjoy the world. Personality.
Be the camera, not the landscape.
I love that. Okay, let's take these 19th century ideas and push them to their breaking point. It is time for our thought experiments.
Disclaimer. The following scenarios are outlandish but plausible philosophical thought experiments inspired by the work, for entertainment and educational purposes only.
Scenario number 1. The boredom versus pain society. Schopenhauer says life swings between these two poles.
Oh.
What if we built a society that strictly separated them?
Okay, I'm with you.
Imagine a city divided by a high wall. On the west side, we have the Philistine zone. This is a utopia of material abundance.
Everything you could want.
Unlimited champagne, oysters, jacuzzis, the finest clothes, perfect weather. But, and here is the catch, we strictly ban all mental needs. No books, no art, no philosophy, no complex conversation, no puzzles, just sensory pleasure.
Pure physical reality. And on the east side,
The intellectual zone. High austerity. You live in a dorm room, you eat nutrient gruel, you are in a state of need or pain regarding the body, it's cold, but you have unlimited access to libraries, laboratories, instruments, and solitude.
Okay, so this is a fascinating setup. According to Schopenhauer, what happens to the Philistine zone?
It should completely self-destruct.
It should collapse. Schopenhauer argues that without mental needs, the abundance produces a lethal level of boredom. To escape the boredom, the inhabitants would have to create movement.
And since they can't create intellectual movement,
They would turn to physical chaos. They would gamble, fight, take extreme risks. They might even start a civil war just to feel something. They would destroy their paradise just to escape the stillness.
it would be a nightmare of their own making. And the intellectual zone.
This is the real test. Schopenhauer claims inner wealth immunizes you. But does it immunize you against starvation?
That's the question.
In this zone, the pain might be too high. However, if the basic survival needs are just barely met, the gruel is enough to keep you alive, Schopenhauer would bet on this zone.
He'd put his money on the intellectuals.
He'd say the physicist solving a theorem in a cold room is infinitely happier than the Philistine bored in a hot tub.
It puts the healthy beggar versus ailing king idea to a literal test. The beggar here is the intellectual rich in mind but poor in comfort.
Exactly. And Schopenhauer would say the mind can transcend the cold, but the body cannot transcend the boredom.
I love it. Okay, scenario number 2, the anti-honor legal system. We take Schopenhauer's solution to the duel of the stick and we apply it to modern internet culture.
That's good. The internet is the new domain of knightly honor. It's all about what people say about you. It's about taking offense.
So in this scenario, we implement the stick. If you get into a Twitter feud, if you post a reaction video claiming your honor was besmirched, if you try to cancel someone to restore your reputation, the state steps in.
And what happens?
And instead of a lawsuit or a debate, the police show up and administer immediate, humiliating corporal punishment to both parties.
To both.
To both. The person who insulted and the person who took offense and escalated it.
Wow. So the rudest is always right becomes...
The one who cares about honor gets the stick.
Schopenhauer would say this forces everyone back to civic honor. You stop caring about the sham of reputation because the cost of defending it is immediate humiliation.
You just learn to ignore the trolls.
You would ignore the trolls because engaging with them hurts. Literally.
It would certainly quiet down the comment sections.
It would. But it raises a question. If you block that release, if people can't fight for their honor, does the violence disappear or does it just become repressed and psychological?
That's the counter argument.
Schopenhauer thinks if you remove the folly, you get peace. But maybe you just get a society of people seething with unexpressed resentment.
A peaceable intercourse of people who secretly hate each other but are afraid of the stick.
Which honestly sounds a bit like Schopenhauer's ideal dinner party.
Yeah.
He wasn't a fan of emotional expression. He wanted quiet.
So what does this all mean for us? Where do we land after all this?
We've journeyed through the anatomy of happiness. We've seen that property is seawater. It never quenches the thirst.
Never.
We've seen that position is a shadow. It's just other people's thoughts. And we're left with the only thing that's real, personality.
The takeaway for the learner is that happiness is an inside job, and not in a cheesy self-help way, but in a brutal, structural way.
Yes, very structural.
You cannot buy it, property, and you cannot extract it from others. Reputation. You must be it.
You must build a mind that is a good place to live.
And here's a final provocative thought to chew on. Schopenhauer said, actions are fleeting and works are immortal.
Yes. The general's victory is forgotten. The poet's verse remains.
But look at our digital world. We generate infinite content. Posts, videos, streams. These are actions. They are performative. They happen in the moment. They depend on an audience. Are we living in an age that has inverted Schopenhauer's rule?
Wow.
Have we made works impossible?
That is a chilling thought. If we are drowning in a sea of ephemeral actions, perhaps we have destroyed the attention span required for works. And if works are the only path to immortality, are we dooming ourselves to a culture that leaves no trace?
Are we building a civilization of echoes with no voice?
Are we all just clapping in the dark?
Something to mull over next time you're scrolling. Thank you for listening to Talk Treatises.
Keep the camera lens clean.